There is an idea I have been toying with for some time now. Typically when we think of a good man, we think of all the good deeds he has done. Or for a bad man, we consider how horrific his deeds have been. But what happens when a man embodies both extremes to such a degree that, to quote Max Durat, they flirt with the supernatural? A man who holds in his soul terrible darkness and emulating light simultaneously. What label do we give him?
I pray for the safety of all good people who come to Zion. But we can't expect God to do all the work. I have been baptized twice. Once in water, once in flame. I am the right hand of the Lord, and the instrument of his vengeance.
Joshua Graham, the Burned Man, survivor of the nuclear fallout wasteland of the once United States of America, hardened warrior and battle strategist, unmerciful to those who would dare harm those who he has sworn to protect, once the right-hand man of a fascist dictator, and missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stones.
From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Mormon portrayals in the media have never truly been faithful to our real identity. Many within the church choose to portray themselves as without blemish, wholly righteous beings. Many outside the church choose to portray us as being devilish cultists. Few portray us as we really are. When I originally learned about Joshua Graham from the video game Fallout New Vegas and how he was labeled a Mormon, I knew I had to make a video about him, especially since he is such a popular character. But few members of my church are talking about him, and even less so when it comes to YouTube videos. Once I planned to simply sit down in front of a camera to react to various videos about him, unscripted. However, I found that to be rather difficult. Joshua Graham deserved better. He is too complex of a character. I needed to sit down and formulate my thoughts about him on paper. The enigma that he is has built up quite a reputation on the internet. For many, his character has inspired them to return to church. For others, they find his voice, his confidence, and resolve to be so alluring that they have recreated it using AI so they can listen to him spout off essential wisdom. Others have Joshua reading the Bible. Others have him reading The Art of War and other texts of philosophy. But I have only found one of him reading the Book of Mormon. So who is Joshua Graham? Joshua Graham was born in the post-Great War settlement called New Canaan, located in Ogden, Utah. Even from a young age, Joshua demonstrated a great talent for learning new languages, becoming fluent in several tribal languages. As a missionary preaching the gospel, Joshua was recruited by the followers of the apocalypse on an expedition into Zion National Park, a part of the Grand Canyon. The leader was a man named Edward Salo. After a translation error, they were held captive by a tribe called the Blackfoots. The Blackfoots were at war with several other tribes over territory and were losing. Salo, having been influenced by a book on Julius Caesar, decided to take advantage of the situation. He offered to train the Blackfoots in combat, teaching them to shoot rifles, march in formation, and create explosives. Soon enough, Salo renamed himself Caesar and took complete command of the tribes of the Grand Canyon. Joshua became his right-hand man, with the title the Malpais Legate. Over the next 30 years, they conquered any surrounding area they could with brute force. Caesar, like the ones of old, desired to enlarge his empire as much as he could. As legate, Joshua Graham carried out orders without hesitation. He executed and punished any who he needed to, whether it was men, women, or children. There was not the slightest thought of doubt which crossed his mind, no hint of remorse. He simply did what he was told, what he needed to do. He was the best at it. No blinking. In the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints today, obedience is one of the most controversial topics. Most ex-Mormons despise any degree of obedience. The ones who remain in the church consider it to be the highest duty to receive the highest blessings. We hear countless stories of members quickly obeying the prophet as the last word on anything, but many are concerned about it being blind obedience bordering on the cultish.
This way lies the path to hell. Caesar needed me to translate. Translation became giving orders. Giving orders became leading in battle. Leading in battle became training, punishing, terrorizing. A series of small mistakes before a great fall. And I stayed in that darkness until after Hoover Dam.
Caesar could not tolerate even the least amount of failure, even from his most trusted soldier. After suffering a terrible defeat in attempting to take over the Hoover Dam, Joshua Graham was made an example. Caesar had him covered in pitch, set on fire, and thrown into the Grand Canyon. He never resisted. He didn't even scream on his way down, a fate no one could come back from. But then Caesar started hearing rumors within his ranks that Joshua had survived the fall. The legend of the burned man began to spread, the only one who had survived Caesar's cruel methods. Caesar, of course, couldn't allow this rumor to give doubt to his followers. He forbade anyone from speaking the name or uttering the tale. Breaking the law would ensure death. Caesar chose to invade New Canaan with the help of the White Lake tribe and leave none alive. He would raze it to the ground. Though many survived the slaughter and scattered abroad, the weak, the ill, the old, and those who stayed to help them were given no mercy. As the player character, you enter the story here. You are tasked with helping a caravan through the canyon as a courier. The caravan is attacked by the White Lake tribe. You alone survive and are found by a member of the Dead Horse tribe who leads you to his people. There you find Joshua as their chief, wrapped in bandages from head to toe. He is inspecting handguns in preparation for war. He had survived the fall by some untold miracle, and had been leading a tribe that had broken off from Caesar's empire. Imagine if you were Joshua Graham being set on fire and thrown into the canyon. Imagine the heat engulfing your body, feeling your skin turn to ash, your eyes watering dry from the heat, unable to keep them open. Now imagine being kicked down a chasm to your certain doom, the sharp rocks you scraped against on the way down, the hard thud on the ground. Now imagine the still, sheer determination to live, waking up on the canyon floor with the fire extinguished. Your skin is charred and burns under the heat of the dry sun. Everything is becoming hazy, your muscles ache and your bones struggle to stay together. Every movement you make causes tremendous pain. Imagine, if you will, the 3-month hike back to New Canaan, eating whatever bugs or berries you could find along the way. Imagine the willpower you would need to keep struggling. Imagine the scientific impossibility of having survived such an experience. Surely you would attribute it to divine intervention. Or if not divine intervention, you might spend your whole life pondering how you survived. The perplexing nature of it. You couldn't stop thinking of it. So too with Joshua Graham. He can only attribute his survival to God, but so was the love and acceptance back into his church. Despite all the cruel things he had done to shame them, it changed him forever. No longer would he blindly follow any orders he was given. He would forge his own path and identity to do what needed to be done.
I survived because the fire inside burned brighter than the fire around me. I fell down into that dark chasm. The flame burned on and on. The next morning, I woke up and crawled out of the northern edge of the Grand Canyon, that cursed place. It took me 3 months to reach New Canaan. It was as though the prodigal son had returned. They welcomed me like I had never left, never done anything to shame them. The fire that had kept me alive was love. Their love. God's love. I will never be able to repay the debt I owe to them, but I must try.
Despite the massacre Caesar enacted on his people, Joshua chose to forgive him, loving the sinner but hating the sin. Joshua understood more than anyone how his victims must have felt. Every day he is reminded of his sins as he washes and replaces his bandages.
It never stops burning. My skin. Every day I have to unwind the bandages and replace them with fresh ones. Exposing my body to the air is like living through it again. But it's better to be clean than comfortable.
Accordingly, suffering is what makes one conscious. Without pain, we would have nothing to question. Without anything to question, we would not become self-aware. While we too often treat being self-conscious as a negative, it is a requirement to obtain new knowledge. So to paraphrase Friedrich Nietzsche, we might ask, how much truth can we handle? Consider the human body. We would be ignorant of its inner workings if we never felt pain or got sick. We wouldn't have any need to get in and fix whatever was the problem. Without stubbing our toes, we wouldn't need to be constantly aware of our surroundings. Without a suffering animal, we would not have the cause to say, "You beautiful animal, let me heal your pain." Pain, indeed, is what connects all living things. Latter-day Saints, or Mormons, speak of two baptisms. The first is by water, the second by the laying on of hands to receive the Holy Ghost as a constant companion and guide. We refer to the second baptism as by fire, a spiritual fire. As a Latter-day Saint, Joshua would have received a second baptism by the spiritual fire, but then a third by literal fire, something too real to ignore. Now living in a state where he needed to be constantly on the lookout for Caesar's assassins and the growing threat of the White Lake tribe, he knew that the tribe he took shelter in was in danger. He needed to prepare and act for any form of war. For many, the inspiration of Joshua Graham is a representation of a man of action, a man who will not sit idly by while the world passes, a man that few young people are like but seek to emulate, a man whose religious zeal is stronger than any opposing force. Daniel, another missionary accompanying a second break-off tribe called the Sorrows, wants to passively evacuate the canyon, but Joshua wants to take the fight directly to the White Lakes, knowing they would not stop hunting them. His love drives him to violence. Contemplate the words of warning from Joshua if you seek to threaten Daniel to give you a map to get out of the valley.
There are many reasons why that would be a bad idea. I will illuminate 3. First, do not believe that because Daniel is a missionary, he is incapable of or unwilling to defend himself. Second, if you harm Daniel or any of the Sorrows or dead horses, I will find you. Make no mistake. God willing, you will not leave this valley. Lastly, waging war against good people is bad for the soul. This may not seem important to you now, but it's the most important thing I've said.
Like the God of the New Testament, he is ready to hand out mercy to those who deserve it. But like the God of the Old Testament, he will not hesitate to deal justice to those who threaten to harm those he's sworn to protect. He knows more than anyone that Caesar and the White Lakes are beyond reason. If it must be his tribe or theirs who must die, he will choose theirs.
When our Lord entered the temple and found it polluted by money changers and beasts, did he ask them to leave? Did he cry? Did he simply walk away? No. He drove them out. It is one thing to forgive a slap across my cheek, but an insult to the Lord requires... No. It demands correction.
Joshua Graham has many important lessons to teach the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as we know it today. We live in a rather divided time, not seen since just after the death of the prophet Joseph Smith. Many of these groups have splintered off because they refuse to believe that any of the leaders were capable of terrible deeds. Some refuse to believe Joseph Smith was a polygamist or a treasure digger. Others look at Brigham Young's racist views and how he segregated blacks out of the temples. Others think of the Mountain Meadows massacre, how a group of Mormons slaughtered many innocents. Many stumble at the thought that Brigham Young University itself once practiced electroshock therapy on homosexuals. Or others at a bishop asking too personal of questions. How could God's true and living church be capable of such terrible things? Surely the Lord would not allow such deviations to be had among his people. How can his people be a light on a hill if they are capable of such immense darkness? Are only some prophets true and others false, or are they all false together? When they lie, do they do it for the Lord or themselves? Who knows how many people have felt abandoned by God? And consider the many terrible things done in the Bible. Here we have a God who does not hesitate to drown countless in a flood, rain fire upon a city, or kill all the firstborns in Egypt. Why would anyone want to worship such a God? More so is the thought of a God who would demand death as a punishment for countless seemingly minor sins in the book of Exodus. Even the book's exemplars are deeply and often tragically, we might say scandalously, flawed, wrote Patrick Q. Mason. Abraham lied, Moses murdered, Joshua committed genocide, David committed adultery and had the woman's husband killed in battle. Solomon went after other gods. Elisha called upon two bears to tear apart youth for mocking his bald head. Jonah was angry God did not destroy a city and fled from him. And Peter denied Christ 3 times. These are the heroes Christians, Jews, and Muslims look up to?
Doth this offend you?
Even Christ was not above offending people. Do you feel uncomfortable? Who said faith was ever supposed to be easy? The scriptures tell us many times that it is a stone of stumbling and rock of offense. But to quote Friedrich Nietzsche, there will always be rocks in the road ahead of us. They will be stumbling blocks or stepping stones. It all depends on how you use them. Let us continue with the story of Joshua Graham, the man who has made even the most hardened atheist turn to religion. As he continues down his path of violence against the Whitelegs to secure peace for the new Canaanites and the other tribes, he risks reverting to his old cruel ways. After attacking the Whitelegs, killing many of them, Joshua held their chief at gunpoint. The Whiteleg chief, called Salt Upon Wounds, begs the player to persuade Joshua to not kill him. If you allow Joshua to kill Salt Upon Wounds for killing his people, he becomes the most feared man in the valley. His legend grows ever more. The tribes he helped turn into a new and brutal military force. The Whitelegs scatter to Wyoming and soon go extinct. But if you have a high enough skill level, you can persuade Joshua to show mercy to the cowering Whitelegs chief. And Joshua remembers how the new Canaanites were willing to forgive his transgressions as the prodigal son.
I want to take from them what they took from me, from my family. In this life, I want them to suffer. I want all of them to die in fear and pain. I want to have my revenge against him. Against Caesar. I want to call it my own, to make my anger God's anger, to justify the things I've done. Sometimes I tell myself that these wildfires never stop burning, but I'm the one who starts them. Not God, not them. I can always see it in my mind, the warmth and the heat. It will always be a part of me. But not today. Go. Get out of here. Go back. Back to the Great Salt Lake.
When a harlot approached Jesus while he was eating with Simon, a Pharisee, she wiped his feet with her hair and tears. Simon questioned why the Lord would allow such a sinner to be so near him. But so it is that he was called a friend of sinners. He teaches Simon an important lesson. He tells of a parable of a creditor forgiving 2 debtors, how the one who was in greater debt would have rejoiced more than the other.
Seest thou this woman? I entered into thine house. Thou gavest me no water for my feet, but she hath washed my feet with her tears, and wiped them with the hairs of her head. Thou gavest me no kiss, but this woman, since the time I came in, hath not ceased to kiss my feet. My head with oil thou didst not anoint, but this woman hath anointed my feet with ointment. Wherefore I say unto thee, her sins, which are many, are forgiven. For she loved much. But to whom little is forgiven, the same loveth little. Thy sins are forgiven. Thy faith hath saved thee. Go in peace.
The same could be said of Joshua Graham. Despite the great darkness that lies inside him, many still can't help but admire the man. Can we not do the same towards those in our real lives? Or consider Itachi Uchiha from the Naruto franchise, who is so beloved as a tragic hero despite having massacred his entire clan for the love of his brother and village. Or Severus Snape from the Harry Potter books, who was a betrayer, deceiver, and murderer. How easily so many in the real world forgave him. Joshua Graham teaches us that even those who had committed the darkest of deeds can still be revered. Such individuals are profound in more ways than one because they know what it means to be both tremendously good and immensely evil. Such characters are beyond good and evil. Whatever is done for love always occurs beyond good and evil. I wish to conclude with this thought. Whatever terrible things God or his holy people have done, I do not wish to justify any of it. Instead, I wish to simply accept what is as a part of a greater whole. While there are many other clues to doctrines exclusive to Mormonism mentioned by Joshua Graham and Daniel, which I have not discussed here, I will do so in a follow-up video. Thanks again for watching. Share this video like the video, subscribe to the channel, and always remember to keep it righteous.